Chulin, page 95. Today is one of those fascinating dafs dealing with a lot of practical halachot. Isur nichush is one of the subjects. Is one allowed to go to a palm reader, psychic, hands reader, coffee reader, all different form of divination? In one of the modern day book called Bi'ur Halacha, the author elaborates on several Talmudic stories of rabbis that used to ask a child, Psok li psukha, bring me some of your learning today. And according to that statement or that verse, they make decisions. Is that possible? So, according to the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, the great physician, philosopher, and rabbi of the 12th century, one is totally prohibited to make any decision by any means, in a sense of actions or things like that, based on verse that was said by a boy, little boy, and one who does that is in violation of Isur Nichush, the prohibition in Deuteronomy of you shall not involve in any practice of divination. The Rambam elaborates and said that it was only letzorech siman. The sages that did it was kind of landmark or sign. We have in today's sugya, af al pi she'en nichush yesh siman, meaning if the little boy said a verse, if it's a good and positive, it's a good sign and the person should be happy with that. But it's not by any means any practical follow-up action that should be taken care of. Versus there are other rabbis, Rishonim, early rabbis, that argue, and soon you see some of them, that you can follow that and can do something according to the understanding from that verse, and it's not Isur Nichush. The reason for that, they quote Chazal, the sages that say that from the time that Beit HaMikdash is not existed at this point, destruction of Beit HaMikdash, Nitla hanvu'ah min anvihim, there is no longer prophets, Venitna lashotim velatinokot, was given to people who are either, you may use the word fools, and the little children, and it's like nevu'ah ktana, it's like a little prophecy that the little child said, and therefore it's not stam nichush. The Rema, Rabbi Moshe Isserlich of the 1550, he bring the word of Chazal, Va'olech betom uboteach ba'Hashem chesed yisovevenu. The one who follow the verse, Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, you should be wholehearted with you, Lord, you God, he or she should be sure that only good come out of being wholehearted and not go that direction. So we're going to deal with that. But prior to that, we have another fascinating discussion. Inyan ne'emanut, the idea of trust. Several cases. Let's start with the Nodav Yehuda. Nodav Yehuda was a great rabbi in the ancient time of Czechoslovakia. And as well as another great rabbi, Chavot Yair, also dealt with this question. You have a local kosher butcher, the shochet, and he turned very ill. He called the local rabbi and he said, I want to confess before passing. And I want you to know, guess what? That many animals I slaughtered, it was carcass, it was treifa, meaning animal that's supposed to die in 12 months, that shouldn't be forbidden. And I never declare on that. And now, before I'm no longer among the living, I want you to instruct me of teshuvah, of which way I should be a penitent and repent and rectify that. The problem is that shortly afterward, somehow the person, you can use the word miraculously, he's doing better. So what do you do now? Do you say that can he reinstitute to be a kosher butcher? Or since he make a declaration and now he said, no, I didn't mean that, it was just at the time that I was satiated with morphines. What do you think, David? You should say that because he claimed now that he was satiated with morphine, so now he is, we can re-trusted him? Or you said, wait a second, since now we believe that what he said and we trust the rabbi is true, he can no longer be our shochet. What do you think? Serious question. Hard.
Yep.
Another question I posted to both the Chavot Yair have a response on that, and the W. Yehuda have a response on that. Woman, young lady, get a rare disease. She called the rabbi and she said she's about to die and she wasn't faithful to her husband. The same scenario. She get better and she said, no, I was under medication, under influence, I wasn't myself, it wasn't true, I was faithful. There's a person, we follow the rules of En Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha, a person should not make himself wicked, or we said, no, it is true, and therefore she can no longer permitted to live with her husband. You see, all those are serious questions. Let's start. We are on page 95. Actually start at the very last line, few words from 94b. Ha'u tabachad amar lechavre. It was a fellow, you call it butcher, kosher butcher, or kosher slaughterer. He said to his quote-unquote friend, a fellow butcher, that according to Rashi was kind of enemy. They didn't like each other. So he said, Yahavat paisat minai. Milos feilach mishor shel patam de'avde etmol. He says, if we are a good term and made peace with me yesterday, wouldn't I have given you a cut from beautiful, gorgeous, fattened bull that I prepared yesterday? It's like teasing him. But because you're not my friend and we are fighting, so you didn't enjoy that fat animal. Amar lei, so his quote-unquote friend respond to him and says, achle mishufre shufre. He says, I ate from that animal. He says, what do you mean you ate it? Amar lei menalach. How do you know? Amar lei, Shimon in that sense, says to Reuven, the Zavan Ploni Oved Kochavim Vesafali. We have Johnny, the non-Jewish guy, who purchased from you, Reuven, that fat animal, and he sold it to me. Now it's a problem. Amar lei trei avdi, ve'ahu trei fa'ava. So Reuven said to Shimon, guess what happened? I have two animals, A and B. The one I sold to Johnny, the non-Jew, is B. It's the one who was treif, was not kosher. Now what do you do? Who is the one you trust? Do you say you go by Reuven, you go by Shimon? Who's saying the truth? The problem is, since it's unknown, can you say now all the meats in that area or in that city is prohibited? How you treated this situation? Amar Rabbi, בשביל שוטה זה שעשה שלא כהוגן, אנו נאסור כל המקולין? He said, because of this fool, imbecile, stupid person who acted so improperly and sold a non-kosher meat, or at least declared that he sold, right, non-kosher meat to this guy, to idol worshipper, butcher, without publicizing that he did so. So just because of his declaration that may ostensibly happen, you're not even sure, right? We assume that he's saying the truth. Should we forbid all the meats of any one of those non-Jewish butchers' shop in the city? That's the whole subject of Ne'emanut. The Khatam Sofer and many others have a lot of write-up about Ne'emanut Be'ed. that someone said something, how much you trusted. That's what he said. In one hand you hold, Ein Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha, a person not make himself fool or wicked or, stupid. But as we said earlier, the Nodab Yehuda, the Chavot Yair, ask, with that butcher that about to die and declare to his Rebbe that he's fed people with non-kosher food and now he get better, so what do? The same as the issue with women. It's a very painful, complicated subject. Based on this statement, you make it even more struggle. Rabbi leta'amei, so Rabbi Yehuda Nasi conforms to his standard line of reasoning. The Amar that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, Makulin v'tabachei Yisrael, basar al-imtza biyad oved kochavim mutar. They said if there are butchers' shops in the vicinity, in the city, and Jewish butchers prepare the meat, any meat found in the possession of idol worshipper shop is permitted. Meaning we should not have a concern that the meat is from an animal that was a non-kosher, was treif, because the Jewish butcher will not have sold it to a non-Jew to sell it in his butcher shop. Now, the truth of the matter, practically speaking, if you remember, I assume that some of you remember the story of the few scandals that took place not long ago. People that hold a Sefrumkeit, and unfortunately, they betray their trust. You remember those stories? It's very painful. So, anyway, Ika de Amrei. Now the Gemara presents an alternate version to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's reaction to that incident. Amar Rabbi mipnei shote ze de'ikavan letza'ure lechavre alu ne'esor kol ha'makulim. Just because of this wicked or fool or whatever you call this person, that his intent was only one. He wants to distress his Shimon, his fellow. Or Shimon wants to distress Reuven, whatever you look at. Should we forbid all the meat from all these non-Jewish butcher shops? That butcher was presumably lying about the meat having been from a treifa. Remember, the people who was the slaughterer, the kosher butchers, sometimes they are employees of a non-Jewish owner, for example. Now, Tama, the reason Rabbi Yehuda Nasi considered the meat to be kosher is that the ikavan letza'urei lechavrei. That fellow intend to do what? To cause sorrow, to distress his fellow. Halavach yasu. Otherwise, what you said, it's all the meat that the non-Jewish butcher shop will be forbidden. The problem with that is, V'atanya Rabbi Omer, we have another quote from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi who said, Makulin v'tabachei Israel, what we just said earlier, that all those butcher shop in a city and the Jewish butcher prepare the meat, basar הנמצא ביד כובד כוכבים מותר. If you meat found in the possession of a idol worshipper or whatever it is, non-Jew, is permitted. So the Gemara answers and it said, Shani Acha. Over there it's a different scenario, different story. The Itchazaki Surah. Because it has been established that there is forbidden meat being sold in the butcher shops. So since it is known that a Jewish butcher sold non-kosher meat to a non-Jew of a butcher shop, so you should be concerned that it was not an isolated incident. So apropos meat in the possession of a non-Jew, the Gemara side a related discussion. Amarav, basar kivan shenit'alem min ha'ayin asur. Once meat is obscure from the sight and unsupervised is forbidden. This one must be concerned that it was exchanged for a non-kosher meat. Here is a story. true story that I heard it from a very reliable source. It was a fellow that flew international from Tel Aviv to Bangkok, and then from Bangkok, from Thailand, he flew for business to Osaka, which is the South Japan, with ANA International, which is the Japanese airline. That fellow is a frum Jew, is a observant Jew, and he ordered kosher meal. So they serve him some container from Belgium or something with kosher food, and he was the first one to be served, totally sealed. And he said that he was in the window, it was a space, and it was an aisle seat occupied by a fellow non-Jew, looked like a Asian fellow. So he opened the package, he started eating a little bit, and then he needs to use the bathroom. He left for the bathroom, he came back, they already served everyone else with their own food. He was about to eat his food, and all of a sudden something, he didn't like the taste. So he put it back and just left it like that. And shortly afterward they collected all the trays, they collected also his, and they continue for another time to fly. When they're about to land in Osaka, that fellow looked at him and said, "Excuse me, how do you know?" And he looked back at him and he said, "What do you mean, how do I know?" And that, thank you, that Asian said to this fellow, "How do you know?" He says, "I don't know what you're talking about." It turns out, listen carefully, that while this fellow went to a bathroom, that vicious neighbor, they served their food, he tasted his non-kosher food, the non-Jew, and he didn't like it, and he switched with him the tray without his knowledge. And when that frum Jew came back to eat, all of a sudden something, he didn't like it and he left it. Can you imagine? Basar shenit'alem min ha'ain. You have here a situation that kosher meat, that for an hour you don't see it. Rashi said, based it on the Ritva, that even it was a short time. The concern that even a raven can come in, or idol worshipper, or who knows what, and can switch it. Tosfot and others try to say that it's a stringency, but Meitivei, Rabbi Omer, we just quote, מקולין וטבחי ישראל בצר הנמצא ביד עובד כוכבים מותר. So the Gemara said, נמצא ביד עובד כוכבים שני. Now we go to a very, very famous sugya, which we discussed many times. Tashma teisha chanuyot. You have 9 stores in a city. You are a mathematician, so you like it. Statistician. How many years you serve in statistics in this? Almost 20 years, no? Anyway, here's the statistic. You have 9 stores in one city. Kulan bochot besar shchuta. All the stores selling kosher meat. Beautiful. Ve'achat mocheret besar nevela. There is one store that's selling a carcass, non-kosher meat. ולקח מאחת מהם, ואינו יודע מאיזה לקח. A fellow took, and he's not sure which store he get it. How that can be, I can give you many scenarios that can happen. By a person himself, by his agent, whatever it is, it happens. So the Gemara said, Sfeiko asur. In this case of uncertainty, the meat is forbidden. Why? Now you tell me. because it's safek nevela. You're not sure if it was a carcass or not. So even though, as dinar bataruba, even though we usually go by the majority, and since we have here ta'arovet, and I'm not sure, so the Gemara in Ketubot, page 15, derive from the verse that if we are not sure about chayfetz, we don't go by the ruba. So the big question is how you treat it. There's a Darkei Tshuva, Rabbi Akiva Iger, that expand on that a lot. The key is, because it's feika deoraita, because it's a biblical commandment, so you go stringent, you go chumrah. Uben nimtza halech achar harov. However, in the case of meat found outside, so now you follow the majority. So consequently, since most of the stores sell kosher meat, it may be assumed that the meat found outside is kosher, which contradicts Rav's statement that the meat that was left unsupervised is forbidden. No, what do you have to say? Those who are familiar with statistics.
Much more chance that it was kosher.
Much more chance kosher, rationally it's kosher. But imagine if it's a wealthy person or disabled person, and you send someone who's not religious or not Jewish, right? Whatever it is, the person who walks there, and you send that person to purchase. And they purchase for themselves cheap meat from a non-kosher store, usually. Now they brought you the meat. How do you know that it's from the one of the 9 and not from the one who's not kosher? So hachanami, so here also the Braita is referring to a case where the meat was not unsupervised, but rather was found benimtza biad oved kochavim, that found in the possession of a idol worshipper. Another challenge to what Rav said. And I'm telling you right now, we're just talking the how do you say it, the drop of the ocean, the sip of the iceberg, because there is so much, not just Rabbi Akiva Iger and Tosfot and Chatam Sofer, it's a lot. I just give you the vignette of that. So they said, Tashma, matzah basar im chai alecha charov tabachim, ve'im vushal alecha charov ochle basar. So here is a little different scenario. Here, if one found meat in a city inhabited by both Jews and non-Jews, if the meat is raw, follow the majority of the butcher, so that if the majority of the butchers are Jewish, the meat is presumed to be a kosher meat. However, if the meat is already cooked, follow the majority of meat eaters. Why? Because even if the majority of the butchers are fellow Jews, if the meat was cooked by a non-Jew, the issue is forbidden. So this Mishnah indicates that there are circumstances when the meat is permitted even though it was obscured from sight. V'chi teima, and if you said, Hachanami benimtza biyad oved kochavim, here if it's a found of a possession of idol worshipper, why does the Braita state that if the meat is cooked, mevushal alecha charov ochlei basar, you go by the majority of those people who eat meat. V'nechezei, let us see, let's inspect and see. I oved kochavim naket lei, if the idol worshipper is holding it, I the Israel naket lei, or the fellow Jew is holding. So here we're dealing with a case when the meat was on the ground, but someone was standing and watching it from the time that it was dropped on the ground, so that it was never left unsupervised. So the person watching does not know whether it dropped by a fellow Jew or not, and therefore a determination must be made based upon the majority of the people in the city. So how about Tashma nimtza bigvulim, meat that found in the outlining area outside of Yerushalayim? if it is found as a whole limbs, Eivarim, Nevelot, the meat presumably comes from the carcass of animals, but they are not properly slaughtered. Chatichot, but if it's pieces, we assume mutarot, it's permitted to be eaten, because kosher meat was ordinarily cut up into small pieces. Here also you can presume that it's standing and watching. So why is assumed that it's from a carcass if it's cut in the whole limbs? So the Gemara answered and said, this Mishnah requires explanation only according to Rav, but wasn't it stated with regard to that Mishnah? Rav says that the correct version of the Mishnah is that the small pieces of meat are permitted, in that they are not considered impure, and that one who eats them is not liable to receive malkot, as will be the case where the meat is from nevelot. However, it is not actually permitted to eat meat due to the fact that it was obscure from sight. Levi Amar, however, Levi said that the Mishnah meant to say that the small pieces of meat are even mutarot b'achila, even permitted to be eaten. So the Gemara said, V'hade Rav, the statement of Rav that the meat was obscure from the side is forbidden. Lav beferushit mar, ela michlala itmar. Just talk in general, in inference from different statement of Rav. The Rav havayatev amavra the ishtetit. As Rav was once sitting on the ford of the Ishtetit river, Chazyala ugavra de avaka, he saw a certain man who was, page 95, mechavar reisha. He basically cleaning the head of an animal in the river. Nafal minei. So the head fell from him to the river. Azal aitei silta. So he went and brought a basket. Shada asik train. He cast the basket into the river, and guess what happened? He pulled out 2 animal heads. So you're a statistician, what do you say? How you go?
Out of the river. Well.
No?
I guess we have to see what the majority of the people are there, right?
Amarav, Havdi Name Achi. Rav said to him, does it commonly happen this way, that one loses one item and find 2? So Rashi said, V'chi derech ken? Is that normal manners? Shame'abed chefetz motze shnai? That you lose 1 item and you get 2? And here Rashi used the word klomar, meaning Rashi struggled with the concept. And he said, Acherim avu name hatam bereisha. Just as one of the animals' head is not the one you dropped, it is possible that neither of them is the one you dropped. So therefore, Rav rendered both of them asrinu ni'aleh, both of them forbidden to him. How do you like that?
Mm-hmm.
The Ritva explained, you can argue and you say that since the 2 heads came out, is the reason it's because it's safek, it's not clear. Tosfot said that if 1 head's come out, Rav will not make it forbidden, because basara itale min ayin, that from your sight. Because it wasn't a raven when that happened. The Ritva also expand on that. But anyway, Amr le Rav Kana v'Rav Asi le Rav, the Isur Ashchicha, the Itera Lashchiche. So they said to Rav, is forbidden meat common, but permitted meat not common. Most of the meat in this general location is kosher. So why did you forbid the 2 animal heads? Amar lehu, he answered them, the isura shchichei tfei. Forbidden meat is more common. Now, forbidden meat is more common. Tosfot expand on that. Because what do you derive from that incident? Derive from that according to Rav, meat that has been obscured from sight become forbidden due to the possibility that the meat one finds now was actually deposited by ravens. And those ravens transported it from a location where the majority of the meat is forbidden. Especially in those days. Anyway. So the Gemara asks, V'chi michlala kai mai? It doesn't matter if this opinion of Rav is known by inference based on these incidents rather than by explicit statement by Rav. So the Gemara said, Parvata de Oved Kochavim hai. There is a room to say that the incident cannot serve as precedent for a general policy because the location was a port of idol worshippers where most of the meat was non-kosher. Teida, you should know, the ka'amar lehu the isura shchichei tfei. That Rav said to Rav Kahana and Rav Asi, forbidden meat is more common. So consequently, it is possible that Rav will not have forbidden meat in the location where the majority of the meat is kosher. So the Gemara asks, Ela Rav heiche achal bisra? How did Rav ever eat meat if he holds that the meat becomes forbidden if it is unsupervised for even a short time? So the Gemara answers, Rav ate meat only bish'atei, which means shortly after it was slaughtered. De la alim einei minei. So it's when it was not been obscured from his side, from the time of the slaughter until he ate. Another option, iba'it eima betzaira vechatuma. That the Rav meat was tied and sealed in a way that proved it had not been swept for non-kosher meat. That's what we said. If you fly and you see a fellow getting a kosher food, it's always twice sealed. Veiname, alternatively, he ate meat that could be recognized besimana, by a distinguishing mark, like that practice of Rabba bar Rav Huna. Ki Rabba bar Rav Huna mechatech le atlat karneta, who would cut meat, Rabba bar Rav Huna, in two pieces with three corners, it's like triangle, before he would send it to his family members. Story. Rav Havaka'azil levei Rav Hanan Chatanei, his son-in-law. Chazei mavra de ka'ate le'apei. He saw that the ferry was coming toward him just when he arrived at the riverbank. Amar mavra ka'ate le'apei yom atava le'ovdei kochavim. Lego. The ferry is coming toward me, even though I did not arrange it to come now. So it's a sign for a good day, a festive day. Awaits me in a place where I'm going. So here, remember we discussed the Isur Nichush, the idea of divination. Here, he just noticed that the ferry was coming, so he make a sign out of that. Is that okay or not? It's not as simple, right? Azal kama bava, odik beviza de dasha, chazrevata de talia, tarafa baba, nefuka tukule alma leape. So here, after crossing the river on the ferry, Rav went and stood at the gate of Rav Huna's home. He looked through a crack in the door and saw an animal that was hanging and ready to be cooked. He knocked on the gate, and everyone went out to greet him, and the butcher also came out to greet him. Ata tabachename lo alim ravenei minei. So Rav did not remove his eyes from the meat that the butcher were preparing. Amar lehu, he said to them, Eichu ashta, if you had eaten the meat based upon the supervision you provided now. Sfitu lehu isura levnei brat. You will have fed forbidden meat to the sons of my daughters, because no one apart from me was watching the meat when you all came out to greet me. So despite the fact that he had kept the meat in his sight, lo achal Rav ma'u b'Isra. Rav refused to eat from that meat. My tama, what's the reason? I didn't eat it. Imishum a'alume, even because it was absur from the side. Can be. Hala elim. It wasn't the story. Ela de nachesh, because he used divination, meaning he saw the arrival of the fairy as a good omen. So this is a forbidden, right? And therefore Rav penalized himself and abstained from the meat. Right? So again, we're dealing here with the issue of nichush. So now we're dealing with another very serious issue, which is the story of Eliezer. So before we go to the story of Eliezer, let's understand the concept. So we read at the beginning of Book of Bereshit, one of the early Parshiyot, the story of Avraham Avinu alav shalom. He sent his servant Eliezer to search for wife for Yitzchak, for his son. And Eliezer had no idea how to do it. So he stood there and he said, let's see, if in the well you see a girl and she's going to feed my camel and to feed me, I know that that's going to be the wife for my servant son. So Rav say that any divination that is not like the divination of Eliezer, the servant of Abraham in the Torah, in Genesis chapter 24 verse 14, when he went to seek a bride for Isaac, or like the divination of Jonathan, the son of King Saul, the first Jewish king, who sought an omen as to whether he and his arms bearer will defeat the Philistines, that the first book of Samuel chapter 14, is not divination. Since Rav did not rely on the omen in his decision making, he did not violate the prohibition against divination, and there was no reason for him to penalize himself. So the Gemara answers, Ela sudat hareshut havai. The reason Rav did not eat the meat is that it was an optional meal, optional feast, rather than a feast associated with a mitzvah. V'Rav lo mithanem misudat hareshut, and Rav will not derive pleasure from an optional feast. Rav badik b'mavra. So after we have the reaction of Rav to the story of the fairy, the Gemara states that Rav will check whether to travel based upon a ferry. If it came quickly, he will take the ferry, otherwise he will not. Ushmuel badek besifra, and Shmuel will check that will happen to him by opening a scroll and reading from it what it was open to. Rabbi Yochanan badik biyanuka, Rabbi Yochanan will check what was in store for him by asking a child to recite a verse he was learning. The story of Goal Agra is the story of Rav Kotler and Rav Feinstein, how they make decision to come to America from Europe. It's a long story, and how the people use Goal Agra. There's a lot of tshuvot over that. So the Gemara relates an incident when Rabbi Yochanan checked his luck based on the child's verse. Kulu shnei derav, hava kativ lei Rabbi Yochanan likdam Rabbeinu shebavel. During all years when Rav lived in Bavel, Rabbi Yochanan, who lived in Eretz Yisrael, will write to him, beginning with greeting to our masters who were in Babylonia. Kinach nafshte, after he's no longer among the living, Rabbi Yochanan will write, Hava katav li Shmuel ikdam chavereinu shebavel. He said that to Shmuel, to our colleague who is in Babylonia. אמר לו, ידע מידי דרביינה? Shmuel said, does Rabbi Yochanan did not know any matter in which I am his master? Shmuel wrote and sent to Rabbi Yochanan the calculation of a leap year, כתב שדר לעיבורא דשיטין שני, for the next 60 years. Can you imagine? Rabbi Yochanan was not impressed by this, and he said, Amar hashta chush bena be'alma yada. Now he has merely demonstrated that he knows mathematics, which does not make him my master. כתב שדר לית לישר גמלי ספקי טרפתא. So Shmuel then wrote and sent Rabbi Yochanan a explanation of uncertainties pertaining to the treifot that had been transported on 13 camels. Amar it le Rav bevavel ezil achzei. So Rabbi Yochanan was impressed by this and said, I have a master in Babylonia. I'll go and see him. Before departing on his journey, Amar le linuka psok le psukha, said to a child, recite for me a verse. So he recited for him from the first book of Samuel, chapter 28. Amar le Shmuel met, and Samuel was dead. So Rabbi Yochanan said to himself, Shma mina nach nafshe de Shmuel. Learn from thee that Shmuel has died. So therefore Rabbi Yochanan did not go to see Shmuel. V'lai lashchiv Shmuel. Shmuel did not die. Ela ki echad lo litlach Rabbi Yochanan. The reason Rabbi Yochanan was given the sign, that Rabbi Yochanan should not trouble himself to embark on the long and arduous journey from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. As gehört, Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar אומר, בית תינוק ואישה אבל בישל נחש יש סימן. So he said, home after the birth of a child, or after he married a woman, even though he may not use this as a means of divination to decide upon future courses of action, it is an auspicious sign that he will continue to be successful. Conversely, if his first transaction is not successful, he may take it as an inauspicious sign. Amar Rabbi Eliezer v'uditchazek tlat hazimnei. Tlat zimnei avechazake. Established repeating it 3 times. Based on the pasuk, Yosef enenu v'Shimon enenu v'Benyamim tikachu. Said in Genesis 42, when Yaakov Avinu said, Joseph is not, Simon is not, now you take Benjamin away. So if calamity were before Benjamin, that will establish a pattern of 3 tragedies. Be'amine ravuna merav, b'charuzin ma'u. How about if pieces of meat were stung together and they are obscure from the sight? Amar le al tihi shoite. Don't be a fool. Of course, if the meat is stung together, it is considered to be distinguishing mark. B'charuzin harei ze siman. Ikadei amar ravuna merav b'charuzin harei ze siman. And the meat remains permitted even if they are obscure from sight. Rav Nachman minara de'ayikra levei Rav Kahana lefum nara b'mala yom ha'dekipurei. Atu v'shadu kavde v'chulieta. So Raven came and dropped livers and kidney. So Rav Kahana said to Rav Nachman, Amar le eshkol ve'echol ha'ida de'eter hashchiach tfei. So this time permitted meat is more common than forbidden one, since the Jewish people slaughter many animals on this day. רב חייא בר אבין התבר לבאר קרקע של בית דין עתה לקמד רב הונא אמר לי איתלך סימנה בגבי אמר לי לא אמר לי תביעות אין האלה בגבי you have a visual recognition of it אמר לי אם כן זיל שקול go and take it and eat it רב חנינא חוזר התבר לגבא דבי ישראל לקמד רב נחמן אמר לי איתלך סימנה בגבי the same story אמר לי איתלך תביעות אין בגבי אמר לי אין זיל שקול רב נחמן said if so go and take it and eat it Rav Natan bar Abaye itvar le kibura ditchelta. So Rav Natan bar Abaye lost a skein of sky blue wool prepared for use in tzitzit, in ritual fringes. He searched for it and found it. Ata lekamed Rav Chizda amar le itlach simana begavei. Do you have a distinguishing mark on it so that you identify it? Amar le la, he said no. Itlach tviut eina begavei, you have a recognition of it somehow, visual recognition. So Rav Nachman Rav Natan bar Abaye said to him, Marlein, ken zil shkol. If that's the case, go and take it and you may use it for tzitzit. So just a halacha. That's Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 179. You see it in the Ramah, and you see it also in the Rambam, Hilchot Avodah Zarah, chapter 11. He said, some say that it is permitted for one to make a sign for himself, basing his action upon whether or not a future even occur, similar to Abraham's servant Eliezer or Jonathan. That's the Tur and Radak. The Rambam and the Smag hold that it is prohibited. One who walks with complete trust in God will be surrounded with kindness. V'abotech v'Hashem chesed yisarvenu, and that's what Rashi said. Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, you should be wholehearted with your Lord your God, and that's the most important part. The person should have a faith in God and not trust all kind of divination.